Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Ana Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ana Lara. Today, I want to continue diving into a topic that I've introduced several episodes in the past, and it involves understanding groupthink. And this time, I want to go into the need for the human need for belonging, and how groupthink can affect us in a negative way if we're not aware of these things. I know that this topic is new for many people. I've been introducing it to some of my patients. They're aware of it from an experiential perspective, but they're not familiar with the term and the sociology and psychology behind it. So I want to talk today more about the sociology, the psychology, and how this can impact our health. And that's really why I want to talk about this groupthink, how it impacts our health. And so some of these, I mentioned before, some of these things might sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's because I want to dig even deeper into what is this? How does it impact us? What are the areas of our life that we come across groupthink? Because believe it or not, it's around us more than we realize it is. So, human beings, we're wired for connection. We're born literally attached to our mother within their womb. So we're wired for connection. We're created for relationship with God and with one another. But at the same time, this need that draws us towards community can pressure us into silence, conformity, and then self-betrayal. That's right. That's you betraying yourself. When you know something is not aligning with you, that's right, but you still do it anyways, or you stay quiet. So today we're going to explore why belonging feels essential, how groupthink forms, how social conditioning shapes belief, and how faith-based discernment helps us remain grounded without becoming isolated. So this episode, once again, is not about being rebellious or argumentative. That's not the point of this. It's about learning how to stay faithful, thoughtful, and whole in a world that often rewards agreement over truth. And very important that I talk about this because people are like, how does this have to do with health, right? Once again, I see this continuously being a problem in patients, the things that they share. They're in situations that they don't feel like they have the ability to speak up, or that if they speak up in their environment, that they're not going to be heard. They're going to be judged and criticized and just classified as rebellious and not one of the group. And that is the downfall to groupthink and being in groups. So this first segment, I want to talk about understanding that human need to belong, right? Because from a sociological perspective, belonging isn't something that's optional, it's foundational. And look, some of us are more, some people are more, introverted. And so people who are introverted don't need to be around a lot of people or large groups to feel that sense of belonging. Oftentimes they feel better being with less people or being isolated. And I know that oftentimes, for example, in certain social groups in churches, they'll discourage that. They'll say that we are designed to have connection with other humans, to work together. But some people who are more introverted, I'm in between introverted and extroverted. If I'm around a lot of people, especially the wrong people, it'll drain my battery. I'll have to go home and just disconnect from everything. So I do need my space to recover. I do enjoy being, alone, spending time alone with myself, or just doing things. I don't feel deprived if I'm not in a social circle. And I know that for someone who's very extroverted, they don't understand that at all, because they thrive on being around other people, and it doesn't even matter who. So humans evolved in groups, right, where acceptance meant survival. I've talked about this before. And where rejection meant danger. And that instinct didn't disappear with modern life. It simply just changed form. So in tribal days, right, if you were part of that community, you were part of that tribe, and if you were not part of that, then there was a rejection, and usually the rejection was something that was wrong with you, something you did, and you were rejected from the tribe. So we are still wired for that human connection, right? Support. Some people just desire a larger group, and some just a select few, and they're good. So today, belonging affects where we work, how we worship, what we say online. I've talked about this before, and what we believe is acceptable to question. And so even the introvert that is not going out and socializing, they sense and pick up that groupthink through online platforms. And I mean, we interact with other people. So to some degree, we are interacting with that. Psychology shows us that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. And so this explains why speaking up can really affect physically, can feel physically like uncomfortable and even life-threatening. And this is where I see the health issues come from. When someone isn't speaking up, they start to feel a physical pain. That's because it's eliciting a response in your amygdala. It's an emotional response. And that's the same area, the amygdala, we perceive pain and we perceive emotions there. So if emotionally it's getting activated, it can elicit physical pain as well. And so from a faith perspective, this makes sense. Genesis tells us that it's not good for a man to be alone. We're meant for community. Belonging is God's design. We are the church body. We are the body of Christ, and He is the head. And so, but Scripture also warns us about misplaced allegiance, right? And we were never meant to trade truth for approval. Jesus didn't do that. Jesus didn't trade the truth to be accepted and approved by those who were not in alignment with what He was saying. And the challenge is not, it's not our desire to belong. The challenge is when belonging becomes our authority instead of God. So if we're focused on this need to belong and be accepted in this group, that becomes greater than keeping our eyes on God. What is God telling us? Where is He leading us? What is the right thing to do? Then that's when it becomes a challenge, and people struggle with that. There's an inner struggle that they experience. So let's talk about what is groupthink. Because groupthink is a sociological phenomenon. We talked about this before, where harmony and cohesiveness become more important than critical thought. And that's the real danger there, is that your independent critical thinking is not something that's a priority. I've heard this many times in many groups where they have said this in their own words, but they are indicating that you thinking for yourself is not the best interest for the collective group. That is a red flag. Some of the common signs that you're going to see in a group think, when there's a group think it's a stronghold really as a group, it's if they're, it can include suppressing doubts to avoid conflict. So if you know, like you 100% know intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually, you know that this action or that behavior is not okay in a work environment, in a family dynamic, in church, social group, whatever it is, in your profession, right? A group of professionals, you don't want to speak up to it, you want to avoid the conflict. That's a sign right there. You should feel safe And especially if it's a community, if it's a very close community that you have things in common, you should feel safe to ask your questions, to share your opinions, to speak up. Another sign is rationalizing decisions that feel wrong. Man, I see a lot of really good people that will rationalize their decision on something that I know it feels off to me, but they're just justifying it. And you know what? The reality is we can justify just about anything. It doesn't mean it's true. If there's pressure to agree with leaders or the majority, yeah, especially if you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your chest, like this is wrong, you feel it in your gut, this is wrong, I'm not in agreement, I'm not in alignment, then what happens is you start to internalize that. You start to question yourself, you start to doubt yourself, you start to think something is wrong with you instead of saying, no, I am confident that I'm standing on a firm foundation. What I am saying or what I'm sensing is true, and the group is who's wrong. It takes a lot of boldness and courage to stand up to a group and say, you are wrong and what you're saying is right. Labeling dissent as disloyal, negative, and unfaithfulness. These are some signs, right? And let's face it, some people they want to pretend that they're not seeing what's unfolding before them. They'll stay silent. In work environments, you might see your boss and another employee that seem to be too friendly. You might suspect, yeah, for sure they're having an affair, and you're seeing this, but you stay quiet. And I understand there's some situations that you're not going to speak to. It's not your place, but that's just an example of when we see things that are happening before our eyes and we don't do anything about it because there's a fear of conflict, right? So groupthink doesn't require necessarily bad intentions. Sometimes, oftentimes in groups, it arises in groups that deeply value unity and loyalty, and they have a shared identity. Sometimes they're just not aware that they're not intentionally doing it. It's just like a social behavior that becomes acceptable. It becomes the norm. And so when it's called out, some people are just not self-aware enough to realize that what the collective group is doing, it's actually not unity, it's not loyal, and it doesn't truly carry the values that they identify as a group. And you see this in churches, to be honest with you. I mean, you'll see this in churches, and I understand that a church system is not made up of perfect people. We understand that. There's no debate about that. However, when we see individuals or leaders that are doing highly morally unethical or even legally not ethical behaviors, then the proper approach needs to happen. That there's nothing wrong with speaking with truth and being serious about this is an issue. We need to rectify this and taking those steps. This is why groupthink can show up in. Groupthink can show up in families, churches, friend groups. I've seen this in friend groups, believe it or not. Workplaces, activist movements, online communities. I once had an individual, I've had actually several friends share this about, or patients share this about a friend group where they were all friends for a long time, and two of the friends ended up having an issue, a big moral, ethical issue. And this person's like, I want nothing to do with this person. They were completely inappropriate. I cannot see myself being a friend with them. And now they're thinking, if I pose this to the other people, how are they going to perceive me? So they're not asking the other friends to not be friends with this person anymore, but they want to be upfront and saying, hey, I'm no longer wanting to be in friendship with this person, but these are people that maybe they were going out to have lunch consistently. They would create events as a group to go. So it's kind of iffy, right? It's not a straight across the line situation. So then how do you handle that in a adult, mature way, right? To say, you can still hang out with the group, including that person you're not in relationship with, but you might just want to have some distance and keep it friendly, right? But as long as the group knows I'm no longer in friendship with this person, you guys continue to be friends. I'm not going to ask you to not be friends with this person, but I just want you to know where I'm standing with that. And so that way you have a choice whether you choose to attend that event or not attend those activities that you used to do as a group. And they can respect you. You can all still be friends, right? And sometimes people do have to cut off the whole group, and that's really unfortunate. So groupthink can show up in any of those situations. You see this a lot online. Oh my God, there's a post, you comment something, and then you have a mob of people coming after you because you said the thing that was against the whole group. There's also a very tribal-like mentality. I heard someone say this, that when you're part of a tribe, there's usually something you have in common with. So it might be you have a really strong stance on a political perspective. And I don't want to get political here. I'm just using this as an example. It could go either direction. The example is if, say, you're Republican and this particular group feels very strong about certain values, right? Against abortion and against maybe homosexuality, whatever it is they're against. And they, because of the things they're against, they come together and there's a very strong bond that's formed. And that's that tribal mentality, that tribal behavior. Like, we are against this thing, we stand for this, and we're strong together because that's the bond that brought us together. But if someone in that group starts to question and think, I know we're all against abortion. We understand, the importance of preserving life. But maybe there are some situations where if there's a medical issue, we should think about this. Like, what are we going to do with these situations moving forward? Like, how do we handle that? What's the right thing to do? The moment you start questioning the thing that brought you together as a bond, that's the problem, is that you started to think. You started to think maybe because a family member was in a compromised situation where there's complications and they're having to decide, do we help the mother stay alive or the baby? Like, who do we risk? And there are some situations, medical situations, that it does come down to that. And hey, I've never been in that situation and I don't know what it's like, so I can't speak to it. Of course, I want to say save the baby, but we don't know the life of this mother. And so you start comparing the value of one life over another, and it gets really iffy. And I don't even want to get into that conversation because I don't claim to know the answer for that. I really don't. This is where I think you need to lean on God and pray about it and let God guide that decision. And that's a decision that is made for that individual and their doctor and their families, right? And so the point of this example is if that person starts to think, yes, I'm still in agreement, I'm against abortion, but I feel like this one area is really important that we should consider. The moment you start questioning and thinking for yourself, they will ostracize you out of the group. Like, sometimes there's such a strong response because they're tribal. It's a tribal mentality. And this could happen with any political party. I'm just using that as an example. It could be with any group, that the moment you start to think and be considerate of other options, you're out. And that's the danger of groupthink, is that sometimes the groups, the people that you felt, you thought you had something you had in common, that you belonged in, that you shared the same values, it turns out it's not. Because the moment you start to think for yourself, they don't like you thinking. They want you to just go with the flow. And if you're not the type of person that just goes with the flow, then you're a problem. according to them, in their eyes. You're not a problem. We need people to have the courage to stand up and raise their hand and say, wait a minute, maybe we're wrong about this. Maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe let's find a solution. How do we bring a solution? That's what people used to do, right? Intellectuals, philosophers, they would come together and listen to each other, present perspectives, listen to each other, and come to see, is there a middle ground? Can we find a solution that creates a win-win? Maybe not for everyone, but for the majority. And so this can happen just anywhere. So just be mindful of those environments. And here's the importance. I've talked about many other on past episodes. I've talked about identity a lot. I'm going to bring it up in here because this is where it's so important to know God's identity, your identity, and who you are. What do you stand for, right? We've all heard that cliche. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? And there's some truth to that. You have to know, what are your values? What are the things you are not willing to compromise? Like, what's going to steal your peace if you compromise those values? And that's really important to know. I know where my values are, and there's things I will not compromise. I've gotten myself into some heated situations in the past because in a group environment where something is said, and I'm like, no, I will not follow that. This is not right. I remember, actually, now that I bring that up, I just thought of a story of a time when it was in 2009. I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I was working in a corporate environment, and the manager called a meeting out, and a group of 15 of us were in that meeting, and he starts to share something new that he wanted us to start doing with our clients and so forth. And the things that he was really young too, so I gave him grace for that many times, but he was just very young, not very experienced, and here he is as a manager, right? And he is telling the group what we're going to do and what he wants us to start doing. And I look at him, very pregnant, and tell him, I am not going to do that. What you're asking us to do is illegal. And here's why. And I started to name the company policies, the federal policies, all of the policies. And I said, I will not do this. And so if you wish to write me up, go ahead, because we can take it to HR and we can have that conversation there. But what you're asking is a violation of several laws. It's not only is it unlawful, it's unethical. It just doesn't settle well with me. And so I understand what you're wanting to accomplish with this, but I'm not going to do it. And I got up and I walked out, and everyone in that meeting was astonished. He gets up and walks after me, trying to correct me. And I said, don't ever talk to me like that. You can fire me if you want, but I will not comply with this. And so if you want to fire me for refusing to follow your unlawful directions and new policies, that's fine, because this is not coming from the company. It's coming from you. I called it out in front of the group, and he didn't like it. And so he backed down. I told him, let me get back to work. I'm busy. I have a lot of work to do. I don't have time for these shenanigans. And so I got back to work, and what ended up happening is he retrieved all those directions that he was giving us. Now, I know that a lot of people in that group didn't have the courage to do that, because many of them told me, like, wow, you have some courage. They used a different word. I won't say it. You have some courage to do that. Because by this point in my life, I knew who I was. I knew what I stood for, and I knew what I was not willing to compromise. And a job is a job. I can find work anywhere. So I could not be at peace with myself if I would do something that just isn't the right thing to do. And these are situations that when we go against what our spirit, what our values are within ourselves, we're not in alignment with ourselves, and then our external environment is not aligning with who we are, there's a conflict there. I didn't have a conflict within myself. I knew who I was, and I was confident to stand my ground. but my environment was not aligning to me, and I had to speak up. And the reason was, by this time I was 30 years old, and I had been through numerous situations in my life where I didn't stand up, and it did create a conflict. It created an issue for me. And over time, all of these compromises that you do against yourself, it starts to show up as disease. It does. Your thyroid, your brain, you can't sleep, your appetite changes, your stress hormones are always kicking in, right? Cortisol is always being pumped out. This is why I'm talking about this. Because sometimes you don't need medicine. You don't need an herb. You don't need that. You need to learn who you are. You need to be able to be in these environments and come in and speak truth. If I know that if more people would shine light on situations that are unethical, illegal, immoral, we would live in a very different world because we wouldn't allow for it. And so I always think of the movie Ants. It's been a long time, many years ago that I saw that, and it's an older movie, but Ants reminds me of how we are many and we allow these grasshoppers, the people in power, positions in power, to control us. But when we know who we are, we know the power we have and the community that we have, that if we all came together and came in agreement and found unity, that we would be the ones in control. But the grasshoppers in quotes, right? They want to keep the ants being ignorant and naive of who they are, the power they carry as a group. And I'm telling you, this is what we see in our country. And I'm deviating a little bit right now because I just feel in my spirit being led to go here, that in this country, in the United States of America, it is a beautiful country. I heard someone say I don't think he lives anymore, but he was from another European country, and he said that the second most important document ever written was the United States Constitution. And he said, and the first most important that was written is the Bible. And when he said that, I felt joy, and I felt this honor to being American, this pride, but in a healthy way pride, not in an arrogant pride of saying, yeah, that's true. How many people have read and understood the U.S. Constitution? It's not being taught for a reason, because they want to keep people ignorant and naive of their rights. Yes, this country wasn't founded in perfection. It wasn't. And I get it. I get it that there's a lot of historical things that have happened. And we need to heal from that. We need to heal from that, and we need to move forward. But we need to acknowledge the things that went wrong. Where did we go wrong as a nation in the formation of this nation? What was right? And then right now, the United States of America, we are in the precipice of trying to determine our identity as a nation. Who are we? What is it to be American? It's not a race. It's not a particular nationality. America is a rainbow of people, of different cultures. And I love that. I'm someone who loves diversity. I love the diversity of people, of different ethnic groups, right? Different races. And we shouldn't be afraid of America changing. We should embrace it. But what we need to, just like I'm saying, as an individual, we need to know our identity. America, the United States of America, I think we're at the point where we need to identify what is our identity? Who are we as a nation? Not as a race, not as your ethnicity. As a nation, every state, all those 50 stars plus there's some territories, right? Who are we? We're known for freedom. Guys, we have freedom that other countries don't have. And that's what other nations want. There's evil in this world, and I know that the evil in this world, they are waiting to tear down the United States of America so that we are no longer united. We are divided. We're fighting against each other over the same issues. Look, if you have not been paying attention, I don't know how old you are, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, however old you are, go back and look at the cyclical pattern that we see in society. There's immigration issues all the time. People coming at each other, attacking each other. This is groupthink. There's always a racial issue at each other. There's the police against community, right? There's always everything is cyclical. It'll be LGBTQ rights. It'll be abortion. It is always political. It's always the same thing. These problems, these issues that society faces in this country, it's always recycled and rebranded. That's what marketing is. Marketing is rebranding, repackaging the same idea. I know, I was in business school. In marketing classes, that's what they said. Marketing is repackaging sometimes the same idea, making it look different and new. And that's what's been projected to all of us. And we fall for this lie and this groupthink. You know what? If people unplugged from these cell phones, I'm holding my cell phone, if we unplug from these things and go out and interact with real people face to face, you're going to find out several things. You're going to find out what you do have in common. You're going to find out the common ground. You're going to find out that that person that looks different than you, that you actually like them, that you enjoy the same things, that you maybe share the same experiences, that maybe you have the same traumas growing up. Maybe different cultures, maybe different skin color, maybe different nationality that they came from, ethnicities. Maybe they speak a different language. But we're all the same human race. In God's eyes, we are the same human race. And if you're a parent and you're watching or listening to this, there's nothing more painful than seeing your children fighting with each other over stupid crap. Yeah, I said it. Right? It's foolishness. We want them to get along. It's your brother, it's your sister, love each other. Like, that's what God tells us all the time. Get along, love each other. But sometimes those people that look different than us, it's scary because we don't know them. We haven't taken the time to get to know them. Now, if you feel like you're superior to them and they're inferior, that's a problem. Yeah, that's not God's heart at all. Jesus came in a humble and meek manner. And that's what God is asking for, to humble ourselves. Humble yourself and submit and surrender yourself to God. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing around you. Stop comparing yourself. Stop listening to all the fear and all the violence that we see. I mean, it amazes me how we have normalized seeing violence on social media, right from our phone, not even the TV. It's right directly to our phone. You go on any of the social media platforms and you're seeing people getting murdered. And I'm not speaking about any particular situation because I've seen people be nasty about all of them, and that's not okay. Since when have we become so numb to seeing people getting killed and recording it? Everyone's walking around recording this kind of violence. It's like we have lost our sense of humanity. And I grew up in a neighborhood where drive-by shootings were not uncommon to happen daily or weekly, and they were happening. And you know what would happen when there was a shooting and someone was shot and they were on the ground? We didn't have a phone to record. We didn't have a camera to record. You know what we did? We ran away from the scene. We either ducked down to get on the ground while the shooting happened, and when the shooting stopped, we would run away from that scene. That's what we did. We didn't run to the scene. No, the people that were running to the scene were the helpers. Yeah, they were the ones who were going to check on the person, call police, try to administer some kind of help. But now we don't have helpers. We have an audience. We have a freaking audience of people recording people getting shot and then showing it up on every platform, all these influencers, so they can get an audience, a larger audience. Great. So now you have 1 million views on your 1 hour episode on whatever platform you're on. Just perverting this and just taking advantage of these conversations. Why not find the common ground? There's no need for any of this. We live in a country that we have freedom. And, freedom, it comes with responsibility. That means that, yes, I have the freedom to speak and tell you what I'm feeling. But the moment that my freedom to speak violates your freedom, I no longer have that right. I don't have the freedom to speak death to someone. Not because the law says that, because God's laws says so. And remember, what's in heaven, the gods of heaven mimic down here. It's just that we are very bad at following the laws in our country. We're terrible at following God's laws. Just read all of the Old Testament. I often tell myself, Lord, I know you're real, and I know you're a loving and patient God. And I don't know why you have allowed us to continue to exist for thousands of years. Because your law was clear, and yet we have disobeyed it. We have broken and disobeyed it. We become rebellious. We have a stony heart and minds that refuse to accept that we're wrong. We don't want to change as a collective society. And that's a problem, because while we allow the powers of the world to have such an influence in our minds, they are influencing our minds by the things they constantly show us, so they can manipulate us to feel a certain way about a certain topic, to behave a certain way to certain people. And that keeps us away from each other instead of coming together and say, how can we bring peace to this? How can we rectify the situation? How can we bring solutions? Where are the solutions for this? Let's stop listening to the social media. Let's stop listening to what even government right now is projecting to us. This is why I know that this war is a battle of the mind. It's against our mind. This war is not a physical war. It is a spiritual war. And the spiritual war is targeting our minds so that we can be controlled. That's the problem with groupthink, is that groupthink is controlling our minds, our behaviors. And that's the dangerous part. So until we come together as a nation, stop being a hypocrite, pretending to be more holy than someone else. Start looking at yourself, right? Where am I going wrong? What can I do better? How can I bring more peace and unity to situations? When more people that's waking up. When more people wake up and start speaking up with peace, not acting a fool. Acting a fool doesn't get you anywhere. Nowhere. How about if you want to protest, let's protest. Let's do a 40-day fast. Let's all do a 40-day fast, just water. And let's submit to God and let's pray. When we're in the streets, let's pray. Let's read scripture. Let's read Psalms 91 out loud. Let's read Psalms 23. Let's read scripture and pray for peace and unity. Leaders have done that before. Cesar Chavez did that. He fasted for 40 days. They pleaded him to eat because he was dying away. He was fighting for the rights of farm workers. that they were treated fair, that they were getting compensated well, because there were abusive behaviors, and they were severely underpaid, and they were being treated like animals, to be honest with you. This is here in Arizona, in the Southwest. What a great example of someone who had faith in God. And he said, I'm going to fast. Only water. He took communion. That was it. And he prayed. And he was able to turn that around. These are people who are growing our food, guys. Let's face it, you and I are not going to go work in the field. Some young people can't even make a sandwich at a sandwich shop. So we know they're not going to work the fields. And there's a lot of things in our country that you need to start paying attention. Start paying attention, because farmland is getting in the hands of the wrong people. Farmers are struggling. I know I got all off track right now, but I'm just saying, pay attention to all these issues, because they're trying to take our ability to thrive in this country. This country, at one point, it developed products that this country bought. We never needed free trade. Free trade has hurt this country. Everything you buy comes from China. It's an American company, but then it's getting shipped. I know, I buy stuff online from an American company, and then I see the deliveries like coming from China. I'm like, what? When did we stop making things for ourselves where there's quality? That was the problem. They want us to go into this global system. That's what they want. That's what they're fighting for easier control and manipulation of us. I don't want that. I want the United States of America to continue to be the unique, diverse, crazy nation that we are, that we fight for freedoms. Go back and read some history, please. Maybe that will help you to remember, yes, we're not perfect, but man, I don't know about you. There's a lot of countries that women would not be able to do what I'm doing. Do you understand? To go to medical school, have a practice, have a podcast, just to be able to dress the way I dress. Yeah, I'm not willing to give up my freedom. Are you? Then start thinking for yourself. Start questioning. Start leaning on God for his understanding and direction. Really, silence everyone else's voice. This is why I keep saying to silence the voice of the world, the noise of the world, the chaos of the world. And you know what? That might be even your church. I'm not saying don't go to church. I'm saying lean into God. Keep your eyes on Jesus, because you'll be sitting there and Jesus will speak to you. God will speak to you and tell you something in your spirit that you have to do or say something. Now, will you be obedient to God? Look, I've been in situations where God spoke to me in that moment, stirred my heart, and I didn't do the thing he asked me to do. And then I walk away upset, and he tells me, he reminds me every time, it's because you made them God and not me. You were obedient to what you believed. They were going to react to what you were going to say instead of you being obedient to me, to his voice. Now, God will convict us and correct us and show us. But are you willing to receive that correction? That requires for us to humble ourselves. Yes, we know a lot, but we don't know it all. So we turn to the one who does know it all for that guidance, that divine guidance that he gives us in the direction that we know if he's putting this in our heart, it's going to be okay. It's going to turn out in his favor, right? Just like in the book of Ezekiel, what does God tell Ezekiel, the prophet? He sets him up at the beginning. I'm going to send you to these nations. And I'm telling you, these people are rebellious. They are idol worshiping. They don't hear me. They have turned their backs on me completely. They're rebellious. But I need you to go and talk to them. And when I send you there, I'll tell you what to tell them. And if you don't tell them, I'm going to hold you responsible for not speaking. See, God already broke all that groupthink for him. Now, if you tell them what I tell you to tell them and they don't listen to you because they're rebellious, they didn't listen to me, they might not listen to you. This is what he says in there. Go back and read it. He says, they might not listen to you because they didn't listen to me, but you're going to tell them the words that I released to you to share to those nations. And if they don't listen, then the judgment and the punishment is on them, not you. So what is God telling you, putting in your heart, in your spirit, in your soul, to speak up on, to do the right thing? What is he telling you to do that you're not doing? Because he's going to hold you responsible to that. If we claim that we are Christian, that we are loving, that we love church, that we love God, that we love Jesus, that all of that good stuff, we sing all the nice songs and we get all emotional about it, but are you doing the thing he's making you, commanding you to do? I'm not always compliant because of this problem of groupthink. I start questioning myself and doubting myself, and maybe I'm wrong and they're right. And who am I? Who am I to speak up? Who am I to say the thing that God is telling? Obviously, I'm not obedient. Because when I am obedient, yes, sometimes there is a resistance against me, but there's almost like a move and awakening, like a shaking in that environment. I've been known to speak against things that are truth, against my own culture, my own ethnicity, about people who we are tribing together. It's since I was young in high school. And I know that was God speaking through me. And I was more obedient, I feel like, when I was younger because I didn't know any better. I would just say the thing and did the thing that I had to do in the moment. And yeah, I would be met with resistance. But then what would happen was a wave of, wait a minute, maybe she's right, someone would say. Maybe she's right. And I'll give you this example. I was a senior in high school. I was president of an organization that encouraged Mexican-American students to go on to college. And really it was all minorities. And then it became all students. And we raised money. We gave scholarships to certain students that met certain qualifications. And we did a lot of community outreach events in our community. And these are high school. We were high school students. Well, I was president of this group, and we went to a large conference it was at Phoenix College, I remember. And I mean, there was about 1,000 people there, and from high schools and from universities here in the state. And someone said something about my high school, about South Mountain High School. There had been a riot or something weeks before that. And one of the adults who was, she was an attorney, I think, she spoke up and said something negative about condemning, the students at South Mountain High School and how they were giving a bad image to all Latinos because of the behavior. Now, people didn't know exactly what happened. They didn't know the details. These riots were not really riots. They were kids being rambunctious, just trying to create a scenario so they can leave school early. That's what they were doing. There wasn't a gang violence, there was no shooting. They were just throwing garbage all over the campus. It's foolish, it's childish, but this is what they were doing to end school early, apparently. And so there were helicopters because of South Phoenix, of course, in the 90s, and it got that kind of attention. And so people see things on the news and they don't even know the time of day it is, right? But they drink the Kool-Aid. They drink it up and they believe what they see on TV. And so that was what I saw. I'm like, these kids just want to get out of school early. So this woman just, bashes my school, and I'm there representing with a bunch of other 20, 30 students with us. And I felt the need and the call to stand up and defend my community and my school, and to speak truth. And I did. I went to the mic and I said that before she casts judgment, she should find out exactly what it was. And that while I'm very proud of her for having accomplished such education in her career and that she's successful, I asked her, what are you doing to give back to these communities? Instead of judging them and criticizing, you're not being part of the solution. You're actually part of the problem. And let me tell you, my 17-year-old self was not prepared for what happened after. The whole auditorium started booing and yelling towards me. I'm part of the tribe. I'm first generation Mexican American. I don't hate Mexicans. I don't hate anybody really, but I do love truth. And then the leader of the college, the president of the college, he silenced everyone. He says, okay, everybody calm down. He said, let's listen to our young sister, because what she is saying, there's a lot of truth there. She's right. What are we doing? What are we doing to reach out to the students at South Mountain High School? No one's ever reached out to me as the president of the group. No one ever reached out for mentorship to me or anyone in the school. So when we hold people, leaders, accountable, they don't like it. Get used to it. When you hold people accountable, they're not going to like it. No matter how nice you say it, how professional, how Christ-like you say, they're not going to like it, because the problem is that they have a rebellious spirit. They don't want to hear the truth. So you're not the problem. But God used that situation to awaken the leader in me and to see that I might have been young, but I had the courage to speak up, even if the whole audience was at my throat. And when that one leader spoke up and in my defense, everyone started to cheer. And you know what happened after the event? Everyone started to come up to me, talking to me, wanting to know more about me and so forth. Nothing ever happened after that, though. That's the problem. People talk. They talk all the talk they want, but they don't walk it out. So if you're going to say something, do it. If not, don't say it. But this is why, I know I went off on a lot of a tangent here, got a little excited and passionate, but this is why I think it's important for people to wake up, to start thinking for themselves. Thinking for yourself is not an illness. Actually, the contrary. If you're not thinking for yourself, if you're not questioning, challenging things, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. And I'm asking, I am on bended knees if I could right now, I'm asking that people wake up. Not to my truth and their truth, and no, to God's truth. What does he say? A good leader is always going to tell you this. A good leader is always going to say, think for yourself and question things. Because they're confident leaders. They know themselves. They're secure in who they are, and they encourage you to think. This girl right here that you see, I am a product of teachers in my elementary school who poured into me and always reminded me, think for yourself. Don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you're told. Question things, challenge things. You have the right to question and challenge things. Now, look, I did not go to a really good elementary school. I went to the lowest performing school here in Phoenix. Yet I had the best teachers ever. I say I had Ivy League teachers in old buildings and old books. And I'm glad for that. Because sometimes God humbles us in places where we're lowly, but he blesses us. It's almost like in life, there's sometimes that bad things happen, but if you notice, there's always some good that comes in. And that's God's hand over our lives, bringing grace, lessening the burden in our life. Think, question, challenge things. Because God gave us that freedom. This country mirrors and has given us that freedom to think. We shouldn't pervert our freedom, our right to have freedom. We have to be responsible with it. So no, it doesn't give you the right to speak negative, hateful, death, vile over others. No, not at all. I think America, adults, you need to grow up. Because when I was a little girl, I thought, oh my God, it must be great to be an adult. They know everything. No, they don't. Right now, I see younger people, children and teenagers. They're embarrassed by you. They're embarrassed by the way adults are behaving. And I have hope that the younger generations are paying attention to what's going on in our nation, and that they have the courage that God uses them as an instrument to bring change. Because they're seeing all of this. They have social media too, guys. We can't hide. We can't hide these immature behavior that our leaders are acting immature. And remember, leaders, they set the tone. They set the tone in an organization. They set the tone in any company, right? Including our country. It's time to grow up. America, United States of America, we need to grow up and we need to figure out our identity. And I think God is going to help us to find out, what does that identity look like moving forward? We cannot lose the ground in which we stand on. We are a nation that stands on its own. We need to bring back the power that it once had. That we're innovators, right? Anybody can come to this country and build something and create something and be successful. There's a reason for that. I pray that God's hand is over this nation and that his spirit starts to really move and create revival in anywhere and everywhere people are. And they start to awaken to what is it that we want to see. So remember that there is a cost to conformity, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You know, the Holy Spirit is oftentimes speaking to us, sometimes in a gentle conviction, sometimes loud, sometimes it's uneasy, but the Holy Spirit is always speaking to us. Are you listening? You think God is far, far away from you, but it's not. He's here. He's within you. He's around us. But we're not listening because the noise of the world is so loud that we can't hear him talking to us. We can't hear God's voice speaking to us. And I just want to end with this from Galatians 1:10. It says, Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Ask yourself that. Am I trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? You know, I have this phrase, and you're welcome to take it. I don't know where I got it from, but I've always said, God didn't put me on this earth to entertain people. God didn't put me in this world so that I can glorify other people and praise them. God put me here on this world to do something for his kingdom. And my job is to praise that God, not others. Don't seek approval from others. It'll come. When you find your identity, you'll just attract the right people to you. It will. And so don't worry about being rejected by community. Look, Jesus was rejected in all directions. He still is rejected. God is still being rejected today, 2,000 years ago, and still people reject. They mock him. And let me tell you, when Jesus comes, he's coming as a king, like a lion roaring, with fire in his eyes. And people will know he is the true God, and they will all bend knee to him and know that he is God. But until then, it is your job and my job, our responsibility to create healthy communities where we can question and have real conversation. I want you to stay tuned to the next episode because I'm going to talk about something that I believe this is the reason why we stay silent and the groupthink and all of that, right? So stay tuned into that. I just want to end with, with praying for you that God increases your courage, your boldness to speak up, to truly know God's heart and know your identity. Because in his kingdom, in his heavenly kingdom, all nations are there, all of them. We will be amazed to see all the different types of people that are there. And you know the one thing we'll have in common? That we will have God's peace. We will be in his presence with in his glory. Glory is a place. It's God. and we'll have his love. That's what we should all have in common. So, hey, until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this really long conversation and that it has blessed you. Share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. That I love this country. My family left our country for this one. This is my nation. I might be Mexican DNA, and I always am. I have a pride of being Mexican. I respect and honor my culture. But I am American, and you are American. And what does America look like? It's beautiful. It's love. And it's unity. So until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raices, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.